Here we are. Thank you for coming. And I wanted to get us started with actually as a way of welcoming. I'm actually going to light a candle for us because this is Interfaith Power and Light, and we embrace our spiritual lives. And actually, I will just say that this work this work that we're gathered here to do together for me really is an expression of my faith. And so in that spirit, I just want to light this candle. And as I'm lighting it, recognize that everyone who's gathered here is here because of a positive reason that has brought you here. That has to do with your care and your love for our planet. And that you have visions in your hearts and your minds, like I do, for our planet, for the kind of way we want to leave it for future generations, pass it on with love. So lighting this candle for our visions and for our visions to grow and to join together and to create beautiful things. Recognizing also that people all over the planet care about this planet, that the work that we're doing here in New Mexico is linked up with many, many people all over the world who love this planet just deeply, profoundly, and are showing that love in so many ways. It's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And also just lifting up my own prayers for both inner transformation and outer transformation. So that as we seek to live into these beautiful visions of a healthier planet, that we can cultivate the worldview that will allow for that. Again, presencing those who are to come, our children, our grandchildren, the future who are to come and will inherit this earth in the condition that we leave it. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, all right, so we're here to introduce Project How. This is an initiative to support faith communities throughout the state of New Mexico. Faith community is very broadly defined, all rooted traditions that have ethics of care for creation are included. So we're just very grateful to have all of you here to kick off this project. Okay, so our sacred commitment. Like I said, I wish I could see my notes. But what I am going to say is, as already presenced in that prayer, just that our active care of the natural world is central to spiritual life and social justice. This is a commitment that we hold at Interfaith Power and Light. And so an emphasis here on the active care piece of this. Okay, and I'm going to take a step back because I was going to do a story of self. This is a good practice for community organizing, just to give you a little sense of what I myself am bringing to this work as your facilitator of this hour. My name is Desiree Bernard, and I am still a pretty new executive director of New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light. And I just want to give a very short story of self of what brings me to this work, so you have a sense of it. I learned when I was in college about the climate crisis that we are experiencing on Earth. And it was a major aha moment in my young developing psyche at that time. And it really shifted my worldview and made me realize that that really my adult life as I saw it was going to be framed by this reality of our changing planet and the struggle to do something about it. I was very overwhelmed, I'll say, when I learned about the climate crisis when I was in college, because I was very young and I didn't know much about how to even be an adult. And I found the climate crisis overwhelming because it had to do with our addiction to the products of the fossil fuel companies, which I understood then. I didn't understand much, but I knew those were some of the most powerful companies in the world, and that it would be hard to loosen their grips on the way we live our lives in our society. So at that time, I felt that it was actually too enormous a thing. I felt too overwhelmed to work directly on the climate crisis. So I took a meandering path and went to divinity school and studied, ended up showing up doing other forms of work, showing up for marginalized communities in various other ways. But then after some time realized, okay, I actually can do something about the climate crisis, and I'm going to bring myself back to that work that I found so overwhelming when I was age 19 or whatever. So I'm just super grateful to be with New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light now, to be able to bring bring myself to join forces with other people in this work to care for our planet. And at this point, I mean, though it's still an overwhelming challenge, I do find myself more motivated and inspired than overwhelmed. Thank goodness. So hopefully it continues that way. So let's see. Let's go to the next screen. So just a little background about Interfaith Power and Light. There's a network of 40 state level affiliates in the Interfaith Power and Light network throughout the country. The IPL was founded by Sally Bingham, an Episcopal priest, in the year 2000 to help faith communities to respond to climate change. So locally, New Mexico IPL has a cool congregations committee. I saw that Bruce Hunn is here. He's a leader in the cool congregations space. And that committee has worked with over 20 congregations to realize beneficial projects over the years. And just a shout out, of course, to Sister Joan, who I'm sure many of you know, who has faithfully fostered this work for many years in New Mexico. So on to the next screen here. This is still a little bit about the background. So as Bruce will tell you and other people on the Cool Congregations Committee, folks will reach out to us and say, we want to improve our energy profile. We want to, do the right thing, reduce emissions, so on. And so Bruce or one of our other energy auditors will go out to a congregation and provide them with an energy audit and analyze the energy at their building and what they can do to improve. And then provide a nice report to the congregation that summarizes what they see. And then after that, the hard thing is we have lacked the ability to help congregations to move, as you can see this bridge here, to move from the energy audit stage to the implementation stage. So this is where this initiative comes in now, Project How, to help to move communities from the energy audit into implementation. Okay. So Hannah, I saw that you are here. I'll introduce Hannah Schultz. I'm very happy that she's here. She's with Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. They have their own sort of parallel program that they do. I don't know if you guys have actually called it Cool Congregations as well, Hannah. I didn't catch that when we spoke, but would you be willing to come on here and talk a little bit about the program in Georgia?
Yeah, hey everyone. Good to be with you this afternoon. Thanks for giving me some time to talk a little bit about our work in Georgia. My name is Hannah Schultz. I'm the program director at GIPL. We're the Georgia state affiliate of IPL. We've been around since 2003, and our mission is to inspire and equip congregations in Georgia to organize green teams in congregations, implement practical climate solutions on site, and engage in policy and advocacy. As the program director, I oversee two of our energy programs, one of which is our PowerWise program. So that's similar to Cool Congregations. We call it PowerWise. And then the second program is our SolarWise program. So I thought I'd share just like a little bit about how this works in Georgia and what I see as our role kind of in this space. And hopefully some of these things will resonate with all of you as you're kind of getting into some of this in New Mexico as well. Um, so our PowerWise program has been around really since the beginning of GIPL. I think this was like the first program that we launched when we started 20 some years ago. We offer low cost energy audits to congregations. We contract with a professional engineer who provides a professional energy assessment. He writes a customized audit report for each congregation with specific energy conservation measures. We go over that report with congregations and help them kind of understand what's in the report, what are the retrofits that are being recommended to them, and help them think through like what implementation might look like. And then every year we run a matching grant program where congregations can apply for up to $7,000 in matching grant funds to implement the recommendations in their audit report, and congregations are eligible to apply every year for 5 years after getting their energy audit for those funds. So that's one of the ways that we try to address like the challenge of, the financial barriers that are required kind of upfront in investing in these energy efficiency projects. So that's our PowerWise program. We often recommend that congregations start with the energy audit. Even if they're really interested in solar, we recommend that they start with the energy audit, getting a good understanding of their building, how their building is using energy, what their energy costs are. We use a tool called Energy Star Portfolio Manager, where we benchmark the building's utility use and costs. And then once congregations have kind of gotten that energy audit, done some of those low-hanging fruit things, then we encourage them to also look at solar as a way to continue to offset some of their energy costs and consumption. And our primary role in the solar program is that as a liaison. We serve as a liaison between congregations, vetted solar installers, and the utility. We have about 6 to 7 vetted solar installers in the state who we've worked with for a number of years, who we trust, who are local to Georgia, really understand Georgia solar policy. And when congregations sign up for this program, we reach out to those installers and we ask them to put together an initial proposal for the congregations. I think this is really valuable because, as I'm sure you all know, there is unfortunately a lot of scammy solar installers out there. And so I think a lot of congregations look to us as this like trusted resource. We're recommending reputable companies and people. And that adds like kind of a level of comfort and security for them as they're exploring this option. And so we get proposals from installers. We go over the proposals with the congregation, help them understand kind of what's in the proposal, and then talk to them about the financing options. So whether they're leasing the system or getting a loan, or whether they're going to pay for it out of pocket and take advantage of these tax credits that are currently available. We kind of help them figure out what decision's going to work for them. But really what we do is we speak the language of congregations. And I think that's the biggest benefit that we add, is that we are a third party trusted nonprofit that's been around for a long time. We're not an installer or a contractor. We're not trying to sell them anything. And a lot of us on staff have Master of Divinity degrees, and we have experience working in congregations. And I think that's one of the real benefits that we bring, is being able to help congregations understand why this is important from a faith perspective and from a financial perspective. So a lot of the things that I talk to congregations about, I go to a lot of board meetings, a lot of trustees meetings. I'm talking to the decision makers in the congregations about why these are important projects. And we're in a red state in Georgia where we have a lot of congregations that are very politically divided. So we try to take the politics out of conversations around climate change and clean energy solutions. And I talk about how we are called to be good stewards of the resources that are gifted to us, how we are called to care for God's creation, and helping people think about these projects from a faith lens of protecting communities and neighbors from polluting and dirty and expensive energy. And then I talk about our work at the Public Service Commission. I talk about how our utility rates have gone up a lot in the last couple of years and how they're going to continue to rise as data centers are moving into Georgia. And Georgia Power is planning on meeting those increased energy needs through expensive, polluting energy, like expanding coal and natural gas plants, which they had promised to phase out. And now they're saying they're actually expanding that energy source to be able to meet this demand with data centers. So I kind of explain all of that to congregations, and I then talk about how expensive energy is and how that's a burden on the congregation. Congregations have limited operating budgets and have a lot of mission things that they want to do, food pantries and after school programs and serving their community. And I talk about how solar is a hedge against rising utility rates. And when congregations are able to save money on their utility costs, they can reinvest those funds back into the mission and ministry priorities of their congregation. And I found some of that to be really helpful language in helping congregations think about why this is important, not just from an environmental lens, but also from a financial lens, and kind of how all of these things like go together to better support the mission of the congregation. So yeah, that's a little bit about the work that we're doing and how we approach it. And I hope that's helpful to you all as you think about having some of these conversations with the congregations that you're working with.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was a great overview of a bunch of the points that we're about to make on the slides ahead, but I really just am so appreciative to hear from another state affiliate just how you guys are going about things. And thank you for the awesome work. And I hope we can join forces more as time progresses. So let's see here, moving on. So what is Project How? So Project How is what we seek to provide is hands-on wraparound support to faith communities to help them improve energy efficiency and transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And why is it called Project How? So we got to give some props to David Breaker because he had the inspiration. I think he was inspired by Pope Francis because he got the inspiration right around the time that Pope Francis passed. How, HOW, puts the focus on houses of worship. So it's kind of an expression of this interfaith action through houses of worship. And it also, we like that it invites us with this good question word, how, to into action. So how can we unite with others to address climate change now? How can we stand with those most vulnerable to climate change? How can we model a faithful response to climate change with the broader community? So on. How? I mean, in these times that we're in, it's important to stay curious in order to stay in action, right? Because there's just a lot of complexity and we need to keep asking good questions. So we like the fact that houses of worship presents us with a nice question sentence starter there. We put a quote in here from Al Gore, who said, my faith tradition tells me that Noah was commanded to save the species of the earth. I think we have a moral obligation as well. I will just speak from my own experience just for a beat here and say that some of the ecosystem loss that is happening on Earth right now it really breaks my heart. Like some of the species that we're seeing, I'm thinking in this moment about my dear friends in the coral reef community, because I do feel like those beings that live in the oceans are for some reason just very dear to my heart. And watching those ecosystems collapse and those creatures disappear is very heartbreaking to me. That's just one example, but I think it's good to lift up that the beauty of the earth is sacred, and we really do have a moral obligation to show up to care for life. So let's see. So why it matters. Here's just a bit on moral urgency. So we're in a time of federal inaction, in some ways worse than federal inaction. There's really an attack happening on the energy transition, a denial at the highest levels of the United States that climate change or the climate crisis is even a real thing, which is just shocking because the scientific consensus globally is absolutely clear. And so in the face of that, the moral urgency is this recognition by folks like you and me, people who are centered in our faith and recognize our moral obligations to say, no, the faiths are still in. There was a letter that circulated in the interfaith community earlier this year, affirming that faith communities throughout the United States are staying committed to to the international climate agreements that were signed in Paris in 2015. And that, if the United States is pulling out, that's simply not acceptable to people throughout this country that the faiths are still in. So yeah, combating despair and deepening solidarity with those most vulnerable to climate impacts, very important. There's people being displaced as we speak by climate impacts, vulnerable people, most of whom have done the least to create the situation that we're in. Okay, and then model how faith communities can promote hope and respond to climate change. So as Hannah was pointing out, these opportunities to change the way that we're using energy in our congregations can actually be an expression of our hope and our faith that moves out through our ministries into the world. So it's more than just like what happens in the utility room. It's like really how we express our values in the world, our faith-based values. So here's a few more thoughts about why it matters. Obviously, we've already talked about responding to the climate crisis, just improving public health. Hannah spoke to that as well. Actually, the World Health Organization has said that climate change is actually the #1 health risk globally, according to the World Health Organization. And that's just speaking, excuse me, that's just speaking to the changes of the climate, the heating of the planet, and all the impacts of that, and the impacts that it has on people, on the insecurity of their housing. So there's that level of threat that comes from climate change itself, but then there is also the level of related to, again, as Anna was pointing out, the polluting energy that we are poised to move away from, but that the fossil fuel companies are trying to keep us addicted to. Those energies cause health harms. The particulate pollution from the combusting of fossil fuels causes cancers and respiratory conditions and all kinds of ill effects. So improving public health is a reason why it matters. Reducing energy costs, again, Hannah spoke to that. Renewable energy, once you have set up a way to capture it, it will keep providing you with clean, affordable energy. It's not very different than fossil fuel dynamics where you just have to keep buying those toxic products. So that ends up reducing energy costs, and that gives us pathways for making projects pencil. Contributing to economic growth and jobs. So actually solar industry, looking just at solar, that's not the only renewable energy, but it creates more jobs than the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry creates a lot of wealth, creates a lot of revenue for higher ups. Obviously, it makes people rich quick, which is part of why it's hard to get away from it. But solar industry creates not only more jobs, when we invest in solar, we are creating more jobs, but we're also creating better and healthier jobs that have fewer health harms. So improving resilience and reliability, we'll get a little bit into this on the next slide as well. But these kinds of projects that are happening throughout the country. So we are talking to communities about not just decarbonizing and shifting to cleaner energy to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and all of that, but also using our communities, our congregations, our houses of worship as resilience hubs. This is one of the pathways that we are going to be talking to communities about exploring, is how to use your congregational buildings as community resilience hubs. And this is happening in other states in really beautiful and powerful ways, where when people are struggling from the destabilization of climate impacts, the houses of worship that are set up to run on like solar and storage can stay running and community facing and serving the people at times when the grid might be challenged or shut down, or there might be a storm. Or in New Mexico, if we're having grid challenges, which are more likely because of data centers and increased demand for energy and all of these things. If we're having trouble with heat or extreme cold, and there's a problem with the grid, or if there is a fire or whatever the situation may be, community resilience hubs are places that can run on solar and battery storage, stay open when the community needs services, where people who are vulnerable in our communities may need a place to come in to cool down or to warm up, or to stay overnight, or whatever the case may be. So we're going to be talking about that as a potential pathway for congregations as well. And the state of New Mexico is also interested in setting up community resilience hubs. So that's one option. So that's reflected there in this bit that says improving resilience and reliability. And then demonstrating compassion in action. Again, thinking about the many climate refugees that are already, struggling throughout the world. Obviously, there's the people of Jamaica are being ravaged right now. Storms are worsening. So showing that we actually care about what's happening to our people throughout the world by doing this kind of work, it does demonstrate our compassion in real and tangible ways. So let's see here. So implementation pathways. This is, again, Hannah, I feel like gave us a good overview of these things. This here is the pathway that is recommended. In an ideal world, you would start with the energy audit. You would work on improving energy efficiency in a variety of ways. When we improve efficiency, then we don't have to use as much technology to support our buildings, because our buildings become more efficient. That often gives us a lot of low-hanging fruit for our projects of like how we can have energy savings without a lot of cost. And then electrifying our buildings. Switching, you can switch your appliances. Instead of running on fossil fuels, you can set them up to run on electric energy before installing solar power. The one thing that's important to say about electrification is that, especially with electric heat pumps, the efficiency is much greater than the furnaces that burn on gas. 3 to 5 times greater efficiency if you're working with electric heat pumps rather than gas furnaces. So I want everybody to get the memo that gas furnaces are no longer a healthy investment. There are better options for people, and we just have to figure out ways to move that forward. So then installing solar power, that's the way that our project is going to focus, is after electrification, installation of solar. And we talked about how adding battery storage sets up a community to be resilient if there's grid challenges, and opens up the possibility of becoming a community resilience hub. as reflected in the sixth image there. So let's see. So we are going to have, I'm noticing myself wanting to pause for Q&A, but we are going to have a Q&A section at the end. Feel free to pop questions into the chat, and we'll get to that soon. Let's see. And I just want to say in just a moment, we're going to introduce the team with whom we're working on this project How. So just one second and we'll get to hear from them. So just financing pathways. So we looked at implementation pathways and how we might move through these pathways with communities. Actually, I'm going to go back and say one more thing about this. We talked about in an ideal world, you'll go through energy audit through, in this general direction that I already laid out. In the real world, we don't live in an ideal world where all conditions are perfect. And so there are lots of complicating factors that might make a community move through these steps in funny ways. For example, right now, there are federal tax credits available that are going to go away in July of 2026. So a community might want to prioritize getting solar before doing something else because they don't want to lose their opportunity to get very significant tax credits. Or you might have, there's a congregation in Albuquerque I've already visited who they have very, very old furnaces. So they might want to prioritize switching from furnaces to electric heat pumps, so on and so forth. So the point being that this awesome team that you're about to meet, the idea is for this wraparound support that is going to be available to congregations to help congregations to find their pathway that makes sense for them in this complex world we live in. So financial pathways, similarly, people are going to, congregations are in very different circumstances, and there are different options available. Leases, power purchase agreements are an attractive choice to a lot of people. Tax credits and direct pay that I was just referencing, those things are still available from the federal government as those are being wound down, and they won't be around for much longer because of the bill that passed earlier this year. But that's available, and that is going to continue to impact decision making for the months ahead. Grants, capital campaigns. Some congregations may be in a better position to do a capital campaign or have people in their communities that can really support these campaigns. Denominational support. There denominations and faith entities throughout the country are very committed to this kind of work, and so depending on the community, that those might be options for communities. But hopefully Zach Chavez is here, is going to talk about the support that the Climate Investment Center is going to provide to communities to look at the different financial pathways that they can take. So aspirational goal, I just want to put this out there that we are looking at working with our congregational partners throughout the state of New Mexico to collectively reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So across our various affiliations, I'll just say that when you research, looking into the commitments of various faith communities, Muslim communities, Jewish communities, Protestant Christian communities, Catholic communities, Buddhist communities, Pueblo communities, Navajo Nation, like you look across the board at all of these different communities, and almost all of them have climate commitments. All of them are have goals of, okay, by 2050, we want to reach this goal of reducing, carbon neutral, reaching carbon neutrality, so on and so forth. And just, we have been thinking about how we can translate that into an interfaith commitment, so that, to kind of help motivate our own project here in New Mexico. So that's just something to think about, and hopefully you all will participate with us in setting that goal. This slide just points out that goals may also be different for each project. and can be a combination of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as just referenced, reducing utility costs, stabilizing energy budgets, increasing energy resilience, modeling faith in action, inspiring donor and community support, etc. This is just the example of the Trinity Christian community that was participating in a project this was Louisiana, I believe, and just how this community achieved financial savings and climate goals. So the goals break down in a collective sense and also in an individual sense for communities. So who is involved? So now I'm turning to our awesome team who's supporting this project. So where it says how site, that is the congregations. Those are the congregations that are coming to Interfaith Power and Light and saying to us or saying to Bruce Hun, hey, we want to do a project. We want to, change the way we use energy in our faith community to express our faith. So up until now, these congregations have come to the Cool Congregations Committee, and Bruce and the other energy auditors have beautifully worked with them and done project intake and energy audits. So what we're adding to this now is this level of work, the Project How core team, who I'll introduce momentarily, and then the site implementation team will actually go down to the site and look at it with the folks that are representing the community and provide just concrete, advising and planning and penciling out the finances of the project and all of that. We're doing more marketing and working on grants, actively working on grants to support this program. So hopefully that all of this will just make this wheel turn with some strength and really get us moving on a lot of these projects. So this whole section here is new. So let's see. So we're turning now to introducing our partners in this work. And the first slide here is ECAM. Do we have Carl here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Carl. So do you want to just talk a little bit about ECAM's role in this initiative?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. My name's Carl Davis. I work for an organization called HomeWise, and we have contracted with ECAM to provide energy coaching services. And so they've asked me to attend here, and just a little bit of an overview. So ECAM is the state office. It stands for Energy Conservation and Management Division. And that's the office. It's housed within EMNERD, Office of the Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources Department. And so they're really focused on leading the state's charge towards clean energy adoption. They've developed and managed over 35 incentive programs, different buckets of money that individuals, organizations, local and tribal governments can access. So I just want to make sure everyone knew that ECAM is there as a resource, and that there are, not all 35 of those buckets are going to be applicable for your project, but it's good to know that at a state level, there's been strong political and financial support for these types of projects. I've sort of identified a few of these buckets that might be applicable to organizations on this call, assuming nonprofit status and stuff like that. And the first one I wanted to highlight real briefly, they're called ESCO companies. And so those are energy service companies that can provide similar services to what I've heard other people on this call can, but it's the comprehensive facility energy audit and identify energy saving retrofit measures, design and install work. They can do the work themselves, and they often structure that in a way that guarantees the energy savings. So it can be a real turnkey sort of service where they can come in and change your lights out or your HVAC system and identify those energy savings measures that will sort of pay for themselves. So your reduced energy costs will sort of pay for the services and the upgrades. So it's a really good place to start. They can help simplify that process for folks, for organizations as well. The other couple things I wanted to highlight are there's 2 state tax credits, the sustainable building tax credit and the state solar tax credit. Both of those are great resources. I know that a lot of the organizations don't pay taxes as nonprofits, as 401 organizations. However, both of those tax credits are transferable. And so if you can identify a third party, you can create a transaction which you can monetize those, often at a discounted rate. But I just wanted to bring that to light for everyone, that there's a few resources out there within those 35 ECAM buckets that are worth exploring for folks that are trying to go forward with these types of projects. And just in closing, put it out there that ECAM also supports a number of residential incentive programs as well out there. So if your congregation and individuals outside of your facilities are interested, I highly encourage you to look into ECAM as a resource to sort of identify subsidy sources for those projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carl. And all right, so then our next person on the team is Thomas Gray, who is with Positive Energy Solar. We're working closely with Positive Energy, gratefully, and just want to give the floor to Thomas Gray.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Gray. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Positive Energy. For the last 6 years, I've been focusing mostly on the commercial side of the business, working with ESCOs, as Carl was describing, to do a lot of the solar work for those projects. We've also done a number of projects for houses of worship across New Mexico, so we're deeply committed to our local communities and for bringing long-term lasting solar solutions to these houses of worship and the greater communities of New Mexico. We're an employee-owned company based here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We have offices in Albuquerque, and we serve the whole state and probably in the future El Paso as well. And I wanted just to demonstrate, just to show what our actual mission is, if you can go back one on that, is to empower, to empower New Mexico communities to live more sustainably through solar energy solutions while modeling equitable, responsible business practices. And the focus there is also on the energy efficiency side, right? So we strongly believe that every house of worship building needs to look at energy efficiency before it goes solar, because the whole package becomes much more fiscally and environmentally correct. And that's the deep part of our mission, and we're super pleased to be part of this team and trying to push Project How forward. Thank you, Desiree.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thomas. Okay, Microgrid Systems Lab, David.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. I'm David Breaker, founder and president of the Microgrid Systems Lab. We are a nonprofit energy systems innovation laboratory, and our mission is to accelerate the clean energy transition globally. We work across the areas of research, innovation, demonstration, and workforce education, and are very pleased to be involved with Project How, which actually fits into many, if not all, of those areas. So very exciting, and I think it can help to achieve this mission of accelerating the transition. We serve this effort as a coordinator of the overall project and also providing technical expertise in microgrids and resilient energy systems. We basically have a lot of activity in New Mexico, but we also work nationally and internationally. The photo on the right is a very nice award we got from the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Initiative, recognizing us as a best practice in smart grid innovation. And we apply all those skills here to try and make Project How a reality. So with that, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. All right. Steve, Rocky Mountain Institute.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Abbott. I'm a principal here at RMI. If you haven't heard of RMI, we're a global independent nonprofit. I have about 600 colleagues around the globe, and our mission is to transform the global energy system to secure a clean, prosperous, zero carbon future for all. RMI has been working on energy efficiency, distributed energy resources, solar, and most recently microgrids and resilience hubs for quite some time now. We were founded back in 1982. And basically since then, we've had a focus on many of those issues. This picture here is my colleague Ian Welch Phillips when he was actively working on installing a variety of microgrids down in St. Lucia to support various critical infrastructure. We've also done a fair amount of work here in the continental US, working with cities in Texas and organizations and houses of worship around the country. We were actually working in Georgia a little bit this last spring. And Hannah, I think we almost had a phone call at one point, so it's good to finally connect with you. But we're here to offer advice to you all and the program, and are hopeful of offering a way to expand on initial efforts in the future through what we call our cohort method, where we bring together many entities with a similar set of goals. And we provide a combination of education and facilitation to enable peer learning and discussion. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. All right, Climate Investment Center, Zach.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here, and I really appreciate the invitation by Interfaith Power and Light to be part of this team. As Desiree pointed out, there's many pathways to financing these opportunities that we're talking about today, and NMCIC, the New Mexico Climate Investment Center, is happy to be part of that capital structure or the financing. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Desiree.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a specific mission and vision. We're a green bank. We're not a depository institution, though. It's kind of a misnomer. We're more of a green fund or clean energy fund, and really more of a sustainability fund, because anything that is sustainable would generally fit our mission. And our mission is really twofold. It's to reduce greenhouse gas emissions here in the state of New Mexico, and also to reduce the energy cost burdens that affect low-income individuals in this state. And so that could be in urban centers or major metropolitan areas like Albuquerque or Las Cruces, but it could also be in rural areas of the state and tribal areas. And ultimately, we have the vision of really becoming a catalyst in the just and equitable transition to a carbon neutral economy. And that's through what we see as low cost financing. So traditionally, some of this financing is too expensive for places of worship or nonprofit organizations or tribal communities or people in underserved areas. And so our goal here is to come in and provide concessionary financing. So below market financing for everyone here. Is there a next slide? I think there's a next slide. Yes, here we are. So I touched a little bit on this, what we do and who we serve, but really it's low-income individuals and low-income communities here in the state of New Mexico. And, we're really trying to provide that low-cost financing to expand people's options and give them a chance to participate in some of these initiatives that Desiree laid out. I would say that, a couple of slides ago or a few slides ago now, Desiree laid out some different financing options like PPA arrangements, leases, direct pay. All of those things require financing in some form or fashion. So whether it's a developer like Positive Energy, who might be doing a PPA arrangement with a place of worship, that's still going to require some kind of financing. And if there's a place of worship that wants to do direct pay, where they're buying the system by themselves or leasing a system that they're potentially buying in the future, again, there's going to need to be some financing component to that. So, we're happy to come in as providers of mainly debt That's really what we do. We lend to these organizations at hopefully what is below market or low cost financing terms, and give them a chance to participate in the just transition. I did see a note in the chat about adding community solar to the list of options. I think that's an apt point made by Troy. I would just like to point out from an engineering standpoint that if you have 100, places of worship that are going through the process of installing some of these systems, specifically on the solar side, you run into things like interconnection with your local utility. And my bet would be, and Thomas, please, let me know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but my bet would be is not 100% of those institutions end up passing interconnection for a wide variety of reasons, right? It could be that the infrastructure around their center does not support a solar installation or something like that. And so I think having other solutions like community solar, which allow them to participate in these programs, is a really good way of ensuring that you take that entire journey that Desiree laid out. So in an ideal world, you're going from that energy audit all the way through to resiliency when you have microgrids and solar and battery and things like that. But if for some reason there's an obstacle like interconnection that takes you out of the running for solar, at least we have programs like community solar that can come in and reduce your energy bills even further. So I loved that suggestion. I just want to highlight that as well. So thank you again for the invitation to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to reflect that even though these kinds of projects represent a lot of energy savings for entities in the long run, the challenge is always financing the project up front, that having that initial, getting over the hump of the initial investment is the challenge. So that it's our intention and goal and commitment to help support congregations in figuring that out. So I'm really grateful to the Climate Investment Center and others, all the others here, for sort of being with us in that commitment. I'm sure that we're gonna be able to overcome that hurdle with one another's help. Troy, since Zach was just talking about community solar, do you want to presence that option for congregations that you and I spoke the other day, and you were talking about, like, if it's going to take a congregation a while to get their project in order, then community solar would be a good thing for the interim. Do you want to say more about that?
Sure. Community solar can be used in the interim. Like I worked with, I think it's the St. Thomas of Canterbury. I worked with them across two different companies as they went on a 3-year long journey to try to get their own distributed generation solar on their roof. And in many churches, I also don't know if your goals are to do solar on site when it's not financially feasible, but community solar can be a quick and easy way to reach these goals, offset your energy. You can't technically say you're using solar energy because those renewable energy credits go to the utility. But I'm sorry, I'll get to the point. Is community solar can very much, it's a virtual subscription. It does have some paperwork. In New Mexico, all of the providers I know of have no cancellation fee. I do believe it'd be worth the paperwork if you think it's going to be a year or so until you do on-site solar. Even with that said, my hunch is half of your congregations, it's not financially feasible or structurally feasible to do solar on site. And that would be a great place to use community solar. Or if you believe that they've got a timeline that's more than a year, or you think it's more than a year, that'd be a great place to use community solar. I did community solar in Colorado. I worked hand in hand with another company called Grid Alternatives. We were working with housing authorities, and they would go through and identify, we can do these houses, these ones we can't, these ones we're going to do, and these ones we're going to do later. And then we would go through and tag team and put community solar on the housing projects they couldn't do solar on immediately. And here's like a huge picture is there's going to be this phase 2 of the state program is going to be 50% larger than the first one. It could be a great idea for Interfaith Power and Light to partner up on a project and have some type of relationship with the developer to have like first dibs on this solution. When I was at another company in Colorado, we worked with the Denver the Denver Archdiocese, and they were leasing the land that their solar was on. And then all their congregations, all the Catholic charities, all their housing solutions were going to get community solar from a community solar project built on their own land. And so that's kind of taking the idea of community solar to another step. But just like HomeWise is on the call, HomeWise has one of the community solar projects named after them. There's a lot of possibilities that, well, and all possibilities besides just being a subscriber do get more complicated, but there's some cool other options. Sorry, that was more than you asked for.
Oh,
but
that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate it. It's good to keep community solar projects are starting to come online now. And so it's good to be mindful of them. I'm sorry to say we're at the very end of our hour, and I would really hoped to do some questions and answers. Gosh, Jim, what do you think? Should we take one or two, or should we just wrap up?
Well, if people have the time, I guess, we can take some questions.
Maybe just a couple. Did you see
Yeah.
anything that came into the chat? I know you were gonna monitor.
Yeah, there haven't been any questions in the chat up to this point that need
Okay.
answering, but if anybody wants to verbalize right now, that would be good.
Okay, Daniel.
Okay, thanks. Desiree and I have talked about our issues. I'm the junior warden at the Cathedral for St. John in downtown Albuquerque. We are really interested in some solar to alleviate our energy problems. The issue we have is we are in a restricted corridor for P&M downtown, so we are highly limited on what we can actually pump back into the grid. So having spent 40 years in telecom, including a lot of remote site alternative energy solutions there, I'd like some opinions, let's put it that way, of instead of having a grid tied solar system, putting solar system in and energy storage and utilizing a transfer switch so that we're not backfeeding into the grid. We're using 100% of that energy. And if we have a string of cloudy days that then drops the availability of the solar energy, the transfer switch puts us back onto the P&M grid as a backup energy source. Has anybody ever even thought of something like that? That would also work for these churches or whatever organizations that can't get a grid agreement with the power companies simply because the power company's infrastructure is not sustainable for backfeeding any kind of voltage or current. And even if you don't do the entire structure, you could carve out the critical infrastructure portions of that structure and still have a solar, basically a solar powered system with using a transfer switch to back up from the local power company.
Yeah, so David, do you want to say a little bit?
Daniel, not only has somebody thought of that, we've thought about it for your congregation.
Well, we've thought about it together then.
And actually, I'd like to offer you a position at the Microgrid Systems Lab, because that was an absolutely perfect rendition. You've summed it up. We know that it will work technically. We will still need P&M's approval for that interconnection, but I think they might very well be interested in it as a pilot project to see how it actually works. But the solution absolutely works, and we would be keen to explore it with you.
Oh, I'm so excited because in my brain it's like
joining the Microgrid Systems Lab.
And while that's a cool solution, and you should look at all solutions. I mean, I would really measure what are your goals with an idea of a microgrid and a very complicated switching solution versus community solar.
Okay.
In the Albuquerque area, I don't know how well we could do for a community solar, where I think we have the infrastructure in place. And I don't think the switching will be nearly as complicated as you may think it is. What we will have to do is carve out portions of the facilities electrically, so that we know exactly what we're putting onto the solar and what remains on P&M's grid. But knowing the electrical infrastructure on our facilities, it's not that hard.
Okay. And as Troy said, it really comes down in many ways to what your objectives are. If one of your objectives is resilience, either for your own operations or for the larger community, community solar won't work. So it does start with articulating your objectives.
Right. We want resilience.
Cool. So this is a great example of exactly why the concept of having the site team that works with a specific congregation really has an in-depth conversation with them about the uniqueness of their situation and the uniqueness of their own goals to help them determine their pathway. So this is a nice example as we end the webinar of the kinds of conversations that will ensue as these projects get going. And so I just want to thank everybody. I'm sorry that we ran a little bit over. I'm really grateful to everyone for attending. I want to bring us back to where we started, which is just, lighting this candle and focusing in on climate action as an expression of our faith and our moral values and the commitment that we have to showing up in, with one another, building a movement for creation care, really, for caring for life, recognizing the sacred value of life. So I consider this a movement that we're all building. And so may we all just continue to show up with one another and move forward. Please reach out. Oh, I wanted to presence this last screen, which is just the ready to get started QR code that Jim set up for us here. So on the New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light website, you will also have this link to get started, communicate with us. We'll follow up with you. So it's tough times, but showing up in these kinds of ways can really build, uplift our spirits and show us how much power we have to do beautiful things together. So thanks to everyone for being here, and we look forward to staying connected with you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.